Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're diving into a language that was actually designed to be misunderstood. We're talking about a series of riddles that don't map the transformation of metals, but the transformation of the human soul. We're talking, of course, about the paradoxes of alchemy.
You see, the ancient alchemists, they spoke in this language that was just intentionally baffling. Their instructions, they weren't just recipes. They were impossible commands, a deliberate challenge to everything we think of as conventional logic.
And their texts, they're just jam-packed with these kinds of riddles. I mean, take this one, a raven that flies without wings. It's such a powerful image, and it's designed specifically to break our normal patterns of thought.
But listen, this wasn't just mystical nonsense. No, it was a really sophisticated, symbolic language designed to map a hidden world, a world that the straightforward language of science could never, ever reach. So this brings us right to the central question. Why? Why speak in riddles? What was this great work they were all doing that required such a strange, contradictory way of expressing themselves? Well, the answer, which was really brought to light by the psychologist Carl Jung, isn't found in chemistry at all. It's in the psyche itself. You see, the alchemists weren't just mixing chemicals. They were creating an external map for our own incredibly complex internal world. And for the alchemists, that internal journey always began in the same place, with a single mysterious substance they believed was the source of absolutely everything. They called it the prima materia, or the first matter. Now, this wasn't a physical element you could hold. It was a theoretical concept, this chaotic, primordial state that held the potential for all of creation, precisely because it contained every possible opposite within itself. And this is where their paradoxical thinking just becomes crystal clear. The prima materia was described as both the cheapest thing imaginable and the most precious thing on Earth. It was a secret hidden from everyone, yet somehow known to everyone. And that's the core of the mystery, right? How can one thing be both? This ancient text just sums it up perfectly. A stone that is no stone, a single thing with many names. This was their language for describing the unconscious foundation of reality and, as it turns out, of our own minds. So, how did this cosmic substance become a map for the soul? Well, the alchemists found the connection in a tiny inner spark. They borrowed this incredible concept from Gnostic philosophy called the Scintilla, which just means spark. They believed that hidden deep within the darkness of the prima materia, and by extension, within every single person, was this tiny spark of divine light. This spark was seen as this creative point, like an invisible sun glowing inside every person. It was the center from which consciousness could emerge. Just think of it like a tiny piece of the original divine fire, trapped inside the body and the unconscious, just waiting to be discovered and cultivated. They even had this beautiful poetic image for these sparks. They called them oculi piscium, or fish's eyes. They imagined them glittering like tiny points of light in the dark waters of the unconscious. And each one of those eyes was a particle of consciousness, a seed that, if you could bring them all together, could form the perfected self, the philosopher's stone. So the ultimate expression of this whole paradoxical worldview is found not in some dusty alchemical text, but in a mysterious inscription that became a master-level puzzle for the greatest minds of the Renaissance. This is the famous enigma of Bologna. It's supposed to be an epitaph for someone named Aelia-Laelia-Crispis, who is described as everything and nothing all at once, neither man nor woman but all, resting not in heaven or on earth, but everywhere. I mean, it is the perfect paradox. Now, here's the thing. It didn't even matter if the inscription was genuine or just some clever joke. As Jung pointed out, for 2 whole centuries, it acted like a kind of flypaper for projection. It was a blank screen where thinkers projected their absolute deepest ideas about reality. And the crucial point here is that the interpretations tell you way more about the interpreters than they do about the riddle. So alchemists looked at it and saw their prima materia. A naturalist saw a nature spirit, what Jung would later call a projection of the anima, the feminine aspect of the male psyche. And one philosopher, Richard White, he looked at it and saw the human soul itself. And this brings us right to the final and frankly the most crucial insight of this whole thing. The entire alchemical project, symbolized perfectly by this riddle, was ultimately a journey inward. By trying to solve an unsolvable external riddle, these thinkers were, without even knowing it, doing psychology. They were staring into an abyss of paradox and seeing the reflection of their own unconscious minds, a realm that operates on principles of contradiction and unity that just completely defy everyday logic.
And in that reflection, they found something absolutely profound. As Richard White wrote, they weren't just describing a personal soul, but the selfness of all mankind. They were touching upon a universal human structure, what depth psychology would later call the collective unconscious, and the archetype of the self. So this ancient quest to unite opposites, whether in a mysterious substance or an unsolvable riddle, really did prefigure modern depth psychology. And it leaves us with a fascinating question to consider. When we talk about feeling bittersweet or about being our own worst enemy, what are the paradoxes that we still use today to try and explain the inexplicable territory of our own psyche?